Hey guys, my name is Virginia Watkins, and I'm going to be doing my article presentation on Feminism's Fourth Wave, a research agenda for marketing and consumer research, and this is by Pauline Maclaran. And so this article starts off by asking two questions, which are what happened in the first three waves of feminism, and what distinguishes this from the fourth wave? And also, how does this intersect with marketing? And so it starts off by describing the first wave of feminism. And so it started in the 1850s with the early suffragette movement. And during this wave of feminism, marketing was viewed as a positive force in assisting with their campaigns and getting publicity out for the movement. And an example of this can be seen with Elizabeth Cady's who endorsed a national advertising campaign for fairy soap. And so suffragettes frequently organized meetings in department stores, and a large department store that's popular in the UK is Selfridges, and Gordon Selfridge was the original owner, and he was a strong supporter of the suffragette movement. And so these department stores became a place for women to meet and talk with other women without having to have the presence of a man. And so here in this first wave of feminism, we see this first instance of women's independence and sense of intelligent conversation regarding their rights as women. Alright, and so moving into the second wave of feminism, this was between the 1960s and the 1980s, and this was influenced by a lot of anti-marketing texts. And so here we see a shift between pro-marketing and anti-marketing, with books such as Betty Friedan's Feminine Mystique, which came out in 1963, and Germaine Greer's The Female Anouche, which came out in 1970. And so this wave critiqued the patriarchal market that manipulated women's bodies and desires to serve its own interests. And so this can be seen with advertising images that confine women to subservient domestic roles as wives and mothers. And so criticism of advertising's negative female stereotyping by second wave feminism was effective to a certain point, and so at the end of the wave during the 1980s, advertisers began replacing these passive portrayals of women with more sophisticated representations of female empowerment. And so this brings up my first question, which is, between the 1960s and the 1980s, advertisements played into a patriarchal society that portrayed women in submissive domestic roles. So, do you still think that women are portrayed in submissive domestic roles in current advertisement media, etc., or do you think that there have been strides made to stop this harmful portrayal of women? And so if you'd like, you can pause here to think about the question, answer it, write it down. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. And so this next part of the article moves into the third wave of feminism, which is during the 1990s. And so this third wave of feminism brought recognition of multiple feminisms and the complex relationships between different systems of oppression, such as race, gender, class, etc. And so this is known as intersectionality. And so this third wave of feminism really brought into this idea of intersectionality. And this became a huge cultural turning point for all the social sciences, and it began questioning the binary understanding of men and women. And so this can be seen in Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, which came out in 1990. And so this really became the issue of identities being bought and sold in the marketplace. And so then this increasingly promoted female empowerment along with other masculine and feminine identities. And so this third wave of feminism had a huge cultural shift which questioned the gender binary, and it brought to light other gender identities outside of just biological man and woman. And then also, this is where we see a shift with the feminism project faltering when post-feminism took hold of popular culture and the need for feminism was seen as unnecessary. And so there was this huge decline of the feminist movement because in society's eyes, they didn't see a need for feminism anymore because the idea was that women had the same rights as man. And so This moved into the fourth wave of feminism, which is the current one today, and it can be characterized by the young activists trying to blend the micropolitics that characterized much of the third wave with the agenda of the second wave. And so this wave uses the power of the internet and social media to create blogs and Twitter campaigns to force major change, and it challenges the wider structural aspects of inequality. And so this can be seen with many corporations having fallen to these campaigns and being pressured into changing their ways. And an example of this can be seen in FB Rape or Facebook Rape, which is the online campaign that forced Facebook to shut down offensive pages, and also it attacked brands with ads associated with these pages. And so with this current kind of idea of feminism, we're seeing a shift where stories and campaigns and this movement can be seen not just in person but online as well. And so moving into intersectionality and identity, Maclaran talks about this principle of intersectionality that goes back to the third wave, and it recognizes the different intersecting aspects of identity, which are race, class, ethnicity, etc. And Maclaran brings in this idea of privilege checking. And so, in the first few waves of feminism, it was seen that only middle-class white women were the ones who were speaking on behalf of feminism. However, in more modern feminist waves, we're seeing that there needs to be a more intersectional approach to who is the face of feminism. And so, it's avoiding the idea that straight middle-class white women can speak on behalf of all women. And so this moves into marketing and consumer research. There needs to be more exploration in how intersectionality plays a part in the multiple femininities and masculinities that include gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender identities as well. And so, that being said, marketers are not always the bad guys, and oftentimes public markets facilitate a lot of recognition for previously marginalized groups, and the increased recognition may eventually result in disruption taken for granted gender norms. And so, although the public market is not always the best place for feminism, it's also a place where a lot of change can happen. And so, moving on, Maclaran moves into the pornification of culture, and so what she's discussing is that sex is increasingly normalized through contemporary popular culture, through industries such as fashion, music, social media, and all of these huge social aspects that we have in our lives. And I have a quote here from Ariel Levy that says, "Sex sells. That's our justification for everything. The sex industry has become every industry." And so this is just a viewpoint in how sex is being used within the market to sell things, and oftentimes it's the sexuality of women being used. And so, because of porn, young men and women are growing up with a distorted view of how sex works, and that's often in a mechanical and misogynistic viewpoint. And so, marketers help promote this culture in a lot of different ways, and it positions new markets, such as pole dancing or burlesque, as quote unquote empowering choices for women. And so Maclaran states that there is a new sexism here, and there needs to be an understanding of how markets control these processes on both an individual and in an institutional level. And so this brings up my next question, which is, feminism is defined as the advocacy for women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. And there's a feminist fight currently surrounding the harmful effect that the porn industry has had on women. So, I was wondering, do you think that if the roles were reversed and the porn industry were exploiting men and masculinity to sell in the way that it is done currently for women, would the feminist movement adopt the issue and advocate on behalf of these men? And so here you can take a minute to think about the question, write down your answer. But otherwise, I'm going to move into our last slide of the presentation, which is the austerity and the feminization of poverty. And so, just some statistics based on poverty is that 1 in 5 of the global population lives on less than $1 a day, and 70% of these people are women. And then out of the 780 million people who are illiterate, two-thirds are women. And women only own 1% of land and property around the world. And so in Europe, there is current austerity policies that cut Social Security and the public sector. And because of this, it's affecting women the most. And this can be seen with the gender pay gap that continues to widen in the UK and is now at its lowest level. And so it's known that poor people have to pay more to buy even the most basic products. And so, with that being said, this disproportionately affects women. And so, the certainty of increased gender inequality as the gap widens between the rich and the poor in our society calls for further investigations into the feminization of poverty and its interrelationship with marketing and consumption. And so, basically, what this is saying is that because women are experiencing poverty at a disproportionate level, we need to look at how marketing and consumption of products plays in to the disproportionate effect on women. And so, the Maclaran article in total just discusses how marketing can be used in a negative and positive light within all four of the feminist movements and in different aspects of the feminist movement. And so that is the end of my article presentation. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you guys learned a little something about the different ways of feminism and how marketing affects that. So thank you so much. The end.